Hi, welcome to Armchair Philosophy. My name's Rubin, and today we're going to be talking about the basics of Taoist philosophy. Taoism is a religion in China. However, it did not start as a religion. It started as a philosophical practice created by the philosopher Lao Tzu. Later philosophers such as Lietzi and Zhuangzi also contributed greatly to Daoist scholarship. The primary tenets of Taoism depend on the premise of dualism. That is the topic covered in our dualism video, which you should be able to find in the video description. However, Taoist dualism is slightly different than the Cartesian dualism which we've covered previously. The Taoists, beginning with Lao Tzu, believe in something called the compressence of opposites. That is, for something to have any meaning in being large, there must be something that is small, or at least the concept of something which is small, in order to justify that which is large. From the premise of the compressence of opposites, Lao Tzu posits, in some ways, that if any given concept exists, its opposite must also exist, hence some form of dualistic understanding. But that premise of dualism is later on challenged by philosophers such as the aforementioned Lietzi, who takes a monist approach to Taoism. I'll be covering monism in depth in a future video. However, for a basic definition, we can say that it is, to begin with, a rejection of the standards of dualism, as covered earlier in this video and in the previous video, as well as the acceptance that all of reality is non-dual. That is saying that there is no distinction, no concepts differentiate from each other, and that we should run our philosophy through that metaphysical system. However, that does not mean that Lietzi rejects the compressence of opposites. Lietzi merely comes to the conclusion that the compressence of opposites means that these opposites do not create each other, but are necessary for each other to exist, and therefore should not be considered distinct from each other. The compressence of opposites is classically represented by the yin-yang symbol, which shows a circle with an S formation inside of it, one half being black, the other being white, each with the opposite color represented within it. However, metaphysics are not really the core focus of Taoism. The core focus of Taoism mostly is an ethical practice. That is, it has to do with morality and how we should behave. The ethics of Taoism are essentially naturalistic. That is, Lao Tzu and his contemporaries claim that if anything is to be called good at all, it is that which is natural. Their naturalism expands into their political philosophy. Lao Tzu proposes that the greatest leader should be one who is essentially unnoticed and who controls things in such a way that the people who he rules over claim that they did it themselves with no help from any outside forces whatsoever. However, there are some problems with this naturalistic ethical mindset. For example, it might be natural for someone to get angry and to strike out in anger against someone. However, other philosophical systems, such as Immanuel Kant's deontological ethical system, state that certain actions should not be performed, such as hitting people. If that's not the case in a natural setting, then hitting someone could very well be perfectly morally acceptable. By extension, the political philosophy of Taoism comes into question. For if their basic morality, which their political philosophy is based on, doesn't really mesh with what we realize in our daily lives and what we typically consider to be moral behavior, then how can their political philosophy be any better? Being as Lao Tzu, Lietzi, or Zhuangzi are not here to defend Taoism from the Western complaints, I can't propose to say what they might say in response. However, Zhuangzi makes a case in his writings that this all very well may be a dream, similar to what Descartes said in his argument for dualism. If it is the case that everything that we experience is a dream, as Zhuangzi proposes, then Laozi's naturalistic monism may be acceptable in terms of morality as well as metaphysics. For if we are monists, we very well cannot accept that any action is superior to any other action. In the West, this type of attitude is typically referred to as moral nihilism, that is, the stance that no moral values can be placed on anything. However, moral nihilism has been very unpopular in Western philosophy, and I don't think many Eastern philosophers would like to be described as moral nihilists either, if for no other reason than due to the association that moral nihilism has had throughout the history of philosophy. In addition, religious Taoism has long since departed from its philosophical roots, and is a great example of a religion which, though it had a foundation in philosophy, no longer really clings to it in any sort of way. Whether that's good or bad, the moral nihilist wouldn't have anything to say about it at all. Most Taoists in China and in the West are religious Taoists. Not many practice the philosophical system set forth by Lao Tzu, Liezi, or Zhuangzi. Though they may have read the texts and may be able to recite the verses, not many of them, though some, actually understand the philosophical underpinnings of what they're referring to. Religious Taoists are kind of nuts. They believe in things such as alchemical processes in some cases, and many of them believe that the goal of life is to become immortal. For laymen and modern professional philosophers alike, we should take care to make sure that our philosophical systems don't go the way of Taoism and become steeped in mysticism. We should make sure that our philosophy remains pure and engages in only rational, logical argumentation. That's why I brought up Taoism today, because I want us to engage in real philosophy, in daily life. I don't want us to engage in that kind of mystical practice and leave behind all of the philosophy that we work towards as a society over many, many, many centuries. My name's Rubin Marshak. This has been Armchair Philosophy. I'll see you later. Bye-bye now.
Yeah, it's just as you assuming it's nothing but these humans would like to blame mythology for everything they're doing. They pray for non-existent gods to clean up the mess, but never take responsibility, just claim it's a test. See, that religion you've been given is shit and it's all poison. And it's partially the reason we bleed and it's all poison. Your worldview is poison, your outlook is poison. You can deny it all you want, but the truth is it's all poison.